All right, Entree Architect community, it's 4:14 p.m. Eastern, which means it's 14 minutes past time to start our Entree Architect Context and Clarity live conversation for Thursday, May 12th, 2022. Thanks for joining us. As you get here, say hi. Let us know that you're here and let us know where you're joining the conversation from. Many of you already know that we've been having technical difficulties all day today, so apologies for that. Apologies for the late start, but we're gonna give it a shot here. We're gonna give it our best try and hope that we can have a great conversation that is not interrupted by technical difficulties any further. So great to have you with us. Benita, hi. Thanks for the wave from Atlanta. Scott, thank you for joining us from San Francisco today. He says he's liability paranoid. He's talking about our risk management challenge that we've been doing all week. I've been immersed in liability all week, but glad the sun is out in San Francisco, Scott. And anybody else that's out there, thanks for joining us. Welcome. You have found the Entree Architect Context and Clarity conversation for May 12th, as I said, Thursday. Again, when you get here, say hi. Let us know that you're here. If we've never met before, my name is Jeff. I'm in Indianapolis. I come here every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern for one reason, so that we can find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. Doesn't matter if you're the employee of a firm or you own your own firm. Maybe you've circled a date on the calendar. You said 2022 is my year and you're on the runway to starting your own thing. Or maybe you have owned your own firm for a year or 10 years or 29 years and you're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or probably should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture, and they're all the need to know topics for the success of small firm architects just like you. So again, thanks for joining us today. I see Jefferson from Los Angeles on LinkedIn. Glad you're joining us today as well. Usually you see Katharine MacPhail here for these conversations. Catherine's having technical difficulties just getting back into Restream. I'm having technical difficulties just keeping the internet signal going. So we're going to see how this goes today. So we're going to fly by the seat of our pants a little bit, but that's okay. I'm looking forward to a great conversation. We've been talking about this all week. If you're new to Context and Clarity, uh, we have these live sessions every Thursday afternoon where we have a special guest that I'm going to introduce here momentarily. And we take that theme, that thing that we're going to talk about with our special guest, and we craft an entire week of conversations around that topic. This week, you see on your screen perhaps that our title is Can AI Save Architecture? Well, does architecture need to be saved? I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about that today. But the way that we've crafted our conversations around that have been related to our guest today and this theme, this topic. And the question that we asked on Monday was, what's one tool that's made your work better or easier? There's a tie to AI there, perhaps. The question we asked on Tuesday is, what's the true value or what's the actual value of an architect? I think there's a tie to what we're going to talk about today. The question that we asked yesterday was, what do you do over and over that you wish you could automate or maybe systematize or some version? So that was what we talked about yesterday. Skipping ahead to tomorrow, we're going, what do you hope the future role of the architect is? So that's been our week in a nutshell, leading up to this conversation. And of course, what we're going to close out the week with tomorrow, but leading up to this conversation today. And hopefully, we're able to pull this all together, pull all of those topics together into a cohesive thread here in this conversation today. Um, so Kurt is joining us from Twitch. Hi, Kurt, from Flint, Michigan. He says, looking forward to this one. Our guest today was great on the Entree Architect podcast. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for saying that. Let me go ahead and introduce our guest, and I will second that. And I'm hoping that we can live up to that level of conversation here today. Our guest is an architect and an entrepreneur and a founder. I believe he's a futurist and a technologist, but we'll talk about that maybe a little bit. He's the co-founder of CmyCasa, which was acquired by Autodesk, and the co-founder and CEO of SWAPP. That's SWAPP. SWAPP.net if you'd like to visit the website. And SWAPP is a team and a platform that are moving architecture into a smarter, highly efficient, and flexible design and building process. So, Eitan Tsarfati, welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for having me. And you pronounced my name pretty nicely. Pretty
Well,
good.
thank you for that.
That
I've been
that was
that
good.
I appreciate that because that's one of my hangups. Often we have guests and their names are not easy for me to pronounce, so I'm listening, practicing, and I hope I did it justice there.
Yeah, you did. You did. Thank you for having me.
Very absolutely great to have you here. As Kurt mentioned, you have been on the Entre Architect podcast before. Um, Great conversation with Mark LePage. That's he's we are part of that Entre Architect community here at Context and Clarity is really the proper way to say that. I have encouraged everybody to go and listen to that conversation and listen to that episode because I think that conversation that you had with Mark really answers a lot of the questions that architects have about AI. But I thought I'm going to let everybody go to the the Entre Architect podcast, and listen to Eitan's backstory. But I'm going to pull a piece of that out here because you mentioned Mark asked you, how you got interested in architecture. And you said Frank Lloyd Wright and Falling Water. I'm with you. My dad
Sure.
was transferred to Chicago when I was a kid, and so I grew up around all the Frank Lloyd Wright projects in Oak Park and River Forest and around their Roby House down on the south side. And you mentioned Falling Water, beautiful project, and it made me wonder because of your focus right now on AI and architecture, and I'm going to call it AI assisted architecture, perhaps. I wonder if Frank Lloyd Wright had AI, what do you think would have happened?
Wow, what a question to start with. Well, I was visiting the Falling Water 25 years ago. So yeah, so it's been a while, and I think in life you experience changes. You start with a romantic idea of an architecture, and that of being an architect and what architecture is all about, and then you start working as an architect, and then you expose yourself to the profession, to the real life of the architect, which is pretty different than school days. Um, so I would probably say that you can take Frank Lloyd Wright, as kind of as an example of a very, very talented architect, and he was using whatever he could use right back then. There were
Yep,
no AI.
tools.
I'm not sure if yeah, I'm not sure if there was any CAD, right, all by
Mm,
hand, because I remember all of his drawing by hand, like
right.
perspective lines, and then so I believe he would probably use it like anyone else who will try to see how it can just ease the work and make it more efficient without
Yeah,
harming the design or the conceptual idea that he had.
yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask that question. That's a really hard question to start out with, but I wanted to just throw it out there because I think many architects are maybe afraid of what AI is going to do to the profession, and certainly this idea. Okay, well, if AI comes in and takes over, like Terminator, if AI comes in and takes over, is all the creativity going to go away? And that's why I wanted to ask about Frank Lloyd Wright because when I understand it and looking at your work and listening to the podcast, when you're thinking about and using AI in architecture, you're leaving the creativity to the humans, aren't you?
Exactly. There are the fears from AI is pretty understandable, because you see on the news and you read all these articles about AI, um, and it's kind of hurt the idea of AI, because AI is not here to replace humans. This is not what AI is all about. AI is about taking the tasks um, that are repeatable, that are mundane. The system can learn these tasks better than before, and can actually create or generate drawings or generate results. But uh, AI is not thinking like humans, and this is not something that I don't see AI work like a human being on the near future, for sure. And I think this is the concern that everybody has, because they see too many movies,
Yeah.
and they look at too many futuristic videos, um, and it makes them scared. But the complexity of architecture, the complexity of planning, the creativity part, the cultural aspect, the there are many aspects and factors and criteria in architecture, um, you know that cannot be automated, and shouldn't be automated. It's just a waste of time to automate them, because people are doing it in an efficient way. Um, so I don't see a risk for the profession per se, but I do see a major change in the profession. I do see architects moving from being, um, you know, spending most of their work drafting or spending on drawings, to planning and thinking, and letting the machine generate the results much faster, rather than them you know try to hire the best BIM or Revit people, or technical person to be in the office to generate all the drawings. And I see it as good news. Actually, I see AI is a way to save architecture, not to save the architect and not to replace the architect. And yes, architects needs to be saved. If you can ask me about that, and I can share my opinion here.
Well, let's go there. Let's go there. Do you think architecture needs to be saved?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm saying that it it if it were a software developer saying that, that was pretty rude, or not very sensitive to architects. But I am an architect by profession, and I moved to the technology ecosystem, and you know, uh, a while ago, but I'm still an architect by profession. I'm allowing myself to say that, and I have a unique point of view of someone being an architect in different states, talking to and actually being a technology person and technologist, and an executive at Autodesk who designed software for architects. So you expose yourself to architecture firms all the time, and you hear them, and you are exposed to the industry and all the reports about the industry, and how architects charge for the work, and blah blah blah. You're very exposed. And, in SWAPP, I'm even more exposed, because I'm doing business with architects. So I think half of our business, even more. I think 60% of our business is with all kind of partnerships with architecture firms. And and I hear a lot of what bothers them, and what's going on in the profession. And the answers are very similar, across the country, in the US, in Europe, also in Israel. um, the answers are concerning, because um, it, it seems that architects still spend a lot of time um, working hard. Um, they're not paid enough. They're not compensated. Um, you know, as in terms of compensation that fits the
Right.
efforts and how time they spend. The way that most companies charge for their fees, it has some conflict of interest, what they're expected to provide to their customers. So if the customer wants something very, very fast and you charge by the hour, so there's some conflict of interest here. Um, Most of the firms that I know that I met are not really, they didn't do the extra mile to be innovative. Um, and there's a contradiction between the architect as a very, very smart person with technical skills, very innovative in his nature, and actually he invent things all the time, right? You have a new project, you explore, you almost act like an R&D center, and you explore. Let's say you have a hospital to plan, so you really research and you understand this type of building, and they're very smart. But when the practice itself didn't move so far on the innovative side. That's what I mean. The practice itself, the way architecture firms handle their work, their business, where do they spend more time? The processes um, is not similar to a high tech company, which is very efficient, and use all the technology they can use in order to make their processes very, very efficient. So there's a lot of I see this contradiction between the architects, how innovative they are as individuals, and then you have the profession, which has a lot
Right.
of problems.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, if that resonates.
But I think it makes complete sense. I mean, that's one of my. I teach a per practice class, and that's kind of how I open the first day of class is, hey, look around. What else around you hasn't evolved or changed in the last, these students are presumably 20, mid 20s or so. What in your lifetime hasn't evolved? Um,
Mhm.
and you can kind of come back to the practice of architecture, the traditional firm model, which is really what you're talking about, and primarily what's out there. It's evolved little to none in 85 or 100 years or something like that. So that completely resonates with me. You mentioned SWAPP and working with architects. What exactly do you do at SWAPP?
um, at swap, well, the basic idea is to use AI for radical efficiency in the architecture process. So whatever phase or design phase or process that we can automate, we automate. We do that, and as I mentioned, not to harm the architect, but actually to free his time to do what human does best, what humans do best. Um, and if you think about whatever you can automate, whatever comes to mind, if you start with feasibility studies, and I know a lot of companies are doing things there, this is just step one for us. Massing, modeling, and sustainability, and then the energy analysis, energy modeling of a building, whatever you can, even the rights, and connecting to GIS and connecting to all kind of data sources in order um, to generate a building which is more accurate by code, um, and from massing options all the way to construction documents. So we do a lot of construction documents at SWAPP, which is if I take myself as an architect, this was one of this was a nightmare as an architect. To this phase that you understand what you want to build, you pass the permit phase, or even before permit phase, you have the consultants in, and then you have to generate. You have to generate the construction documents, and this was very, very tedious and mundane work for every architect. I used to work at AutoCAD, and I always tell that I had dreams of me, doing trim. Do you know the trim action in AutoCAD that you just trim in order for the walls to connect, right? What a nightmare. So and that was just one, because at AutoCAD, the sad thing is that architects, firms are still working with CAD, in 2D. And when you work in 2D, you have to draw the same thing over and over again, in section, elevation, detail, schedule. It's the same thing. It's the same window, it's the same wall, but you have to draw it over and over again for different drawings. And 3D has solved it at some extent. But there, the things that I remember were, the tedious work of taking the idea that you already know what you want to build, you have all the you know design decisions, and then you need to generate the whole thing. And we focus there, and generate it in a radical, much more productive way, um, and focusing on the pains, request for changes. There are always changes, either by the customer or the local authority or whatever. How do you make these changes not cause the architect to to rethink about the occupation, but the professional every time that a change comes in? So this is where we focus. We try to automate as much as possible, use the most advanced technologies, to get the most talented team members on board, to solve really, really complex problems of how to, uh, to react fast when there's a change. How do you react fast and change your drawings without having to redraw manually all the time, or rework on the planning side? So this is what we're focused. We have so many fields of, from from the feasibility study all the way to construction documents, but I would probably say that this is what we do.
Is is it just I'm just a sole practitioner, so is there any way I could incorporate that into my own practice, or is it just not going to be available to me just to bigger projects where there's repetitive work involved?
Um, I wouldn't say repetitive work, as
Multifamily or whatever, where you have to do units, many units of the same type or something.
I would say yes. I would say that today what SWAPP focus at is clear design rule or programmatic requirements. Even school, if you take schools for example,
Hmm.
even if there are no repetitive units there, the program is very clear, and you can work in different modules, and you can actually feed the algorithm the requirement and all the restrictions, and then you can actually generate
Hmm.
different schools configurations for different sites. And if you do that, you can actually save a lot of time of rethink and invent the wheel on each site that you work at.
That makes sense. Did you write the code for all this?
Personally,
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
oh no, I tend to hire smarter people than me.
Yeah. So do
Uh,
I. This makes sense.
so the people that write the code for us are machine learning experts,
Hmm.
data scientists, algorithm developers, people to used to work for me at Autodesk and on the research side, and solve pretty complex problems in Revit and BIM 360.
Hmm.
They work at SWAPP today in order to not to replace Revit, but actually to get better results from Revit, I would probably say.
That's an interesting concept, right? Taking another tool and elevating it, I suppose. Is so for someone like Catherine, someone that is a small firm practitioner, and maybe the residential uh, project type is the outlier that we need, but
Hmm.
how how does how can a small firm practitioner implement artificial intelligence in their work, or can they in any way?
It depends. I don't think for it fits every building. Um,
Right.
if you have like a tailor-made, bespoke villa,
Mm,
probably that won't be, the answer, and I don't think that AI should solve that.
mm,
But if you have multifamily projects, for sure, schools, logistics centers. I think sole practitioners can do logistics centers. You don't have to have, your all their portfolio as landmarks, right? Um, so I think some projects has, just to pay the bills, and it still be aesthetic and still be a good project
mm,
where people can use and occupy. Um, um, Office interiors for offices, co-working is great for AI. I mean,
yeah.
you just go to any WeWork or any other or industrious or whatever in every city in the world. It looks the same, and there's a reason for that. There are clear rules. There is leasable square footage, there's rentable square footage, there is amenity space. It's very, very much clear, um, clear rules in order to generate it. So I would say this is perfect for AI. No architect should do that. Just put it in the hands of AI and just do other things. And yes, and I think we partner a lot with small offices, with sole practitioners, or what we called 2 to 12 employees offices. Um, and I think the benefit that they see using our platform and partnering with us is that they don't have to hire people.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're a sole practitioner, you always think about, and I was a sole practitioner for some time, you're always thinking, how many projects do I have? Should I hire one architect? But I can't hire five architects. But what if I have a big project coming in? Should I avoid it?
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of the things that shouldn't stop you, or you shouldn't say no to a customer if you really want to do this project, and then we come along and we partner with you, um, and you don't need to expose us to your customer. We are like, today an architect, one of our partners, told me, it was a nice phrase. He told me, I'm the head and you are the hands, and I really liked it because the hands need to work in a certain way, and with AI, the hands are very capable and doing things smartly, and the head is the creativity and the one that talking to the customer. So that's this is where we're coming.
Chef, do you mind if I ask a question?
Please do. Yeah.
So, so you actually, I don't know if I'm going to be putting this correctly, but you own the AI. So if I needed it, I would get you to do it. And then I don't own it. Like I can't buy it or have it. Your thing, whatever it is. I mean, whatever. I don't know what it, if it probably doesn't look like anything.
Yeah, AI, the big word, the machine,
Yeah.
the creature.
The creature,
Um,
I can't have a creature in my office up here in the attic, right? I mean, it's in Tel Aviv with you.
I would say that, yeah, and I think this is where it's very different from Revit or AutoCAD. You know, Back in the days, we used to buy AutoCAD
Mm-hmm.
or Revit for infinite number of years, if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
If you were old as me, you just bought it, and then when I was a part of Autodesk, we moved to a subscription way of work. So you only lease it. Um, in a way, AI is not really here to lease or buy, but um, actually learn. This is it's a new thing. AI can learn your style without sharing it with others. It can learn the typologies that you usually do. It can learn you know according to the verticals or type of buildings that you work in, um, what you will prefer, and from project to project you'll see better and better results. That's how AI works. The more data, the more you feed the beast. If you wanted to call it a beast, the better results you'll have. So I would probably say, if you use, the best way to use AI is not for one project, but for 10 projects or 20 projects over time.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, you do own it, or lease it, or use it as your helper.
Mm-hmm. But it belongs to you.
Yeah, this is a proprietary. What this is software proprietary of SWAPP. We're a technology company at the end of the day.
I had I think I had AutoCAD LT on floppy disks. Maybe I had something on floppy. So yeah, I'm old enough to remember that when you owned it. I still own it. I just can't use it in any computer I own. But anyway.
And we used to learn AutoCAD from a book. There was no YouTube. We just opened the book.
Yep. Yep. Those were the days.
Yeah, those were
funny enough. Funny enough, the shortcuts are still the same shortcuts.
Yeah.
Like C is circle and CO is copy still.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Some
I don't have
things
any
never change.
information anymore, but it's in my brain. Yep. Well, that's all really interesting. Can it? Yeah. I have a lot of questions, but I'm not gonna hijack the thing. So
yeah, please.
So Michelle wanted to know what a typical day with IA looks like. I don't know that it looks any different. I don't know. Does she mean like your day with AI look like, or what?
In our company?
I don't know.
Yeah. Michelle asked this on she asked this on Clubhouse this morning, and it was what basically it's getting to what all do you have. Is it just design, or are there other business systems? But what do you have AI doing for you, throughout the day, I suppose?
I think we can talk about today, and we can talk about 3 years from today or 4 years from today.
Yeah.
I believe that, without sounding too futuristic, even in the near future, I think 3 years from today, 4 years from today, yes, your day as an architect will look very, very different than it is today. And again, I'm talking about specific buildings, and I'm not talking about all buildings, but in specific buildings, your day will be very, very different. You'll probably spend some time on schematic designs. You'd probably limit yourself by choice. Limit yourself on what modules or what blocks or what the kind of rules or kind of design book that you'll use throughout the schematic design, because you'll understand that from that point, once you made the main decisions of the project, you're actually done. Because the MEP and structural engineer will already be inside, the formulas will be inside. You'll get a coordinated building pretty quickly in your hands, and it will not be changed dramatically when the consultants comes in, because the rules will be there already. And you'd probably finish the work 10x faster than what you do today. And you'll spend less time drafting, and more time thinking, creating, thinking about the surroundings, thinking about choosing between options. You'll probably think about your project in terms of sustainability, in terms of this option and that option, what is more sustainable. You'll look at the energy modeling, you'll understand the result pretty quickly, and then you hit the button and you said, okay, this is what I like, or this is what I showed my customer, and we decided to go for that option. And then you click a button, and then
Mhm.
You know,
So it kind of one of the podcasts I heard you talking on there about how we bill hourly and that'll stop because now we're just on the value of architecture. But do we pretend it took us 2 months to come up with this building and just do other stuff in the meantime? Or it kind of ties in with this question about how will AI affect the value of architects and architecture? So I mean, uh, yeah, if we just get it done in an afternoon, like you said, that you could just have this construction documents done that afternoon, potentially.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The discussion would probably be different because if you think about the profession changing to be radically, the all the designs are radically faster. Um, uh, it doesn't make sense that you'll get no money and you get no fee for the creativity and how what you design. Um, you actually provided your customer with better value. So if the discussion is changing and you go to your customer and said, I'm not billing you by the hour. We have the same interest. You want to break ground faster because you pay interest to the bank today every month, an overhead to your team every month that the project is not out there and it's not occupied. So we have the same interest. So what if I get you the project much faster, like 3 months before time? You should
That's
pay me
true.
more. You should pay me more, not less.
Mm.
So this is the discussion that the future architects should, or even present current architects should do with their customer.
Is it rude if I ask you how much, like, do you charge just as much based on the value of what AI is bringing, or do you just charge by the hour? So it took him 20 minutes, so that'll be like $40.
No, we actually, I wouldn't go into numbers,
Yeah,
but I
I
would,
mean, I don't need to know numbers, but I assume you
yeah,
charge by value, not the time.
by the value, of course. We go to customers sometimes. When we partner with an architecture firm, a lot of the times we bring the customer
Mm.
and not the architect. So we have connection with customers across the country because they understand the value, and we bring the architect. Sometimes we want to bring a local architect because we don't want to open an office in every state and hire local architects. We prefer to partner with good architects, with local architects, and we go together to the customer and say, we are charging by the value. We are not charging by the hour. It's not your interest for us to just extend the project.
Hmm.
So absolutely 100% by the value.
I
Mm.
I think this is the perfect foil to the conversation about hourly billing.
Hmm.
We this is a conversation that's been raging for a while. We just talked to Jonathan Stark a couple of weeks ago about value-based pricing, and um, of course there are a lot of people that are using hourly billing, but the old um adage, I guess, about hourly billing is the penalty for experience and expertise, right? So I charge X per hour, but as I gain experience and efficiency and and expertise, then I'm actually penalized because it takes me fewer hours. Now, okay, well I can charge more per hour. Yeah, but it keeps the thread keeps pulling and it keeps unraveling. And I think what you're talking about here is great because of the radical example, right? Well, we went from 3 months to do the construction documents at $150 an hour or whatever, to, I have no idea, but let's just say 3 weeks or 3 days using AI. We can't. I don't even know what the multiplication factor is, but we can't charge $5,000 an hour because we're using AI. And so I think this is, again, I think it's a great example because it's so radical. The numbers get so far out of whack. So now I'm using this because I think this is exactly what we need to be thinking about in terms of the business of architecture is, what does the tool allow you to do? How does the tool allow you to create value for your clients, and really understanding what value means to your clients. Not, and having worked in the world that you're talking about with multifamily and development and things like that, I completely understand that interest carry is a killer. That interest carry on their loan, on the developer's loan, is often the biggest number on their pro forma. So if you can affect, that's huge value, and it's still in the it's still in the realm of numbers, which we somehow for some reason would like to stay in. But I think we really need to understand our clients, their business, whatever the thing is, and how we're affecting the results and the value. And again, it's it's just another way of saying I think that's a great illustration of that.
And absolutely, Jeff. And I think that one of the things that relates to that is, I don't know if to call it the DNA of the architect, or how how do you spend your time in architecture school? You usually it's not something that they teach you to understand your customer. So your customer is a very financial guy. He's driven by financials. He needs to understand that it's project work and it's profitable. And I don't remember in architecture studies, I don't remember anyone telling me, hey, you have to take some economic lessons or some, financial studies, or, just understand, what is a financial statement. Construction cost, compare it to the revenue generation from a real estate project. Nobody's teaching you that, and this is the world of your customers. You used to get caught as an architect in shapes and materials, and does this elevation talk or communicate with the surroundings, and it's all important, but your customer is thinking in a very financial mode, which means that you're missing something in the communication. So if you bring yourself to your customer, closer to your customer, I think the conversation will be easier about the value, about the time, about how you charge. Why do you charge like that? You can give him examples from his world, and this will lead to a better, I studied architecture, but as I moved to the technology business and the entrepreneurship, I had to take business studies. So I went to Harvard, and studied because this is something that nobody teaches you.
That is exactly right. It's the thing that I think purposefully overlook sometimes, is that this at the end of the day, this is a business. It's the business of architecture, and the Entree Architect community was really founded on this idea of, if you build a strong business that allows you to practice your art.
Exactly.
And Mark R. LePage has spoken before about profit before art. You have to have a sustainable, profitable business in order to be able to create your art. So I love everything about this. Unfortunately, we're all the way at the top of the hour already. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning,
I
which
just love that part of it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
which was into a shorter conversation. Eitan, maybe we can have you back in the future to continue this conversation, because I think
My pleasure.
there's a lot for us to learn here. About just even the practicality of what this means in the day-to-day for an architect. Like I said, I think it was before we went live. I think this is the AI conversation that a lot of us have really been waiting for, because of the actionable, practical aspects of it. The others that we've had have been fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and dreaming about this and different ways things may be in the future. But I really appreciate this conversation about what's actually going on, and I love the 3 to 5 years. Right, that's so real. Right, we can
So
grasp
real.
that today.
Yeah.
Grasp that. So, thank you for joining us. For those of you that are out there in the audience, it looks like for some reason, we're not streaming to Facebook. I don't know what all has blown up with with our feed here. But the good news is the recording will be available. I may do a rebroadcast to Facebook, just so that those that normally join us from Facebook can watch and participate. Just take this recording and rebroadcast it out there. So we'll have to look at the logistics and the possibilities here with our tech and whatever's going on. But it was a great conversation, even without some of our channels here. So again, thanks, Eitan. We really appreciate you. And
Appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
yeah, absolutely fascinated by what you're doing. Katharine, thanks as always for joining me. And everybody out there, thank you. Thanks for being part of this community. Again, without all of you out there, without this community, we wouldn't be having this conversation with Eitan. So appreciate you all for making this possible for us. We'll be back at it again tomorrow, as usual, 4 p.m. Eastern, inside the Entree Architecture Facebook group. Mandy will be hosting that conversation tomorrow, because I'll be on assignment elsewhere. So join Mandy tomorrow. And the question today, or of the day tomorrow, as I mentioned at the beginning, will be, especially after this conversation today, what do you hope the future role of the architect will be? So that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. We'll be live on Clubhouse tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern, and in the Entree Architect Community Facebook group at 4 p.m. Eastern for that tomorrow. So with that, again, thanks everybody. Appreciate each and every one of you. Please take a little bit of time to breathe and relax. Find some way to get rejuvenated, because we'll do it all over again tomorrow and next week as well. So thanks. Take care of yourself. Be well. Stay safe. Keep those that mean the most to you safe and well. And I hope I'll see you somewhere sometime soon. Thanks, everybody.